Hello and welcome to episode 26 of the Paranormal Paradigm podcast. Although it does feel like it should be episode 1, such is the length of time there's been between the last episode and this one. I can only apologise for that. Current world situation, moving house, having a family, it's all getting in the way of making good quality podcasts. Hopefully we're up and running again now. I've got 2 shows already recorded and a list of guests longer than my arm ready to interview for the upcoming shows. So hopefully we're back on track. Hopefully you guys are still around to listen and enjoy the podcast. Hopefully you haven't gone elsewhere. And if you have, hopefully this will get you back. So today we have Kieran Fray, who is a good friend of mine. She lives local to me. She's a medium. She is a paranormal investigator. And she is, in my opinion, the pioneer of the Festival of the Unexplained, which is a festival I have mentioned previously on this podcast, as I was a guest on there. I kicked off their all-day event. I think it was back in August. God, it seems like a long time ago. I was on there talking about modern technology versus original techniques and the downside to having big franchises and TV shows, really. You can catch that show on YouTube. If you go to Festival of the Unexplained on YouTube, you can watch my presentation amongst many other great presentations as well. And the Festival of the Unexplained is normally it goes around different locations within England for on a Saturday or a Sunday, and speakers will be there doing presentations, and there'll be stalls selling crystals and books and magazines and other things relevant to the paranormal, really. And it's a great atmosphere. It's a really good networking time for people to go and meet up with fellow people who have same interests or similar, I guess, experiences to what you might have. Unfortunately, because of what's going on currently in the world, they've not been able to do that. So they resorted to doing it online, which was a huge mammoth undertaking for them. And it was, in my opinion, a huge success. And both events that they've done now online were both huge successes. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that with Kieran and the logistics of it, really, and how difficult it was to set up online, and obviously the downside to not being able to go out and take this festival on the road as they are used to doing. And hopefully we can get back up and doing that next year. I'm booked to be talking at one in Stourbridge, and I think I'm booked in Gloucester as well. So as it gets nearer the time, if those shows do go ahead, I'll be sure to put a reminder out to you guys so anyone in the area can come along. It'd be great to meet you. Before we get on with the show, as promised, I have another investigation to review. You remember I did this last episode or the episode before, I can't remember. I reviewed a ghost hunt I went on with a local group. And luckily, before this most recent lockdown here in the UK, I managed to go out on another ghost investigation. Myself and my good friend Ryan, who you guys might be aware of, managed to go out. And it was in fact with Kieran. It's just a coincidence that she happens to be the guest on this show. But Kieran organised this event at Guy's Cliff I think it's in Leamington Spa. It's classed as like Leicester or Coventry, but it's Leamington Spa. And it's an old stately manor, now run predominantly as a Freemasons lodge, which was interesting in itself. And what was interesting about the night was it was what she called an investigator's night, or a team's night. So although we all obviously had to pay, because you have to pay for these locations, we were all seasoned investigators, really. So I think there were 5 or 6 teams of about 4 or 5 each there, and we all had a timed kind of schedule that we had to stick to. So we were in one area for 45 minutes, then we were in the next area for 45 minutes, and the whole evening ran really, really well. There wasn't much noise pollution from other teams near you. Everyone had a mutual respect for what each of you was doing, and there was a huge array of equipment, which we'll talk about when we get Karen on, but there was a huge array of equipment that people were using, and it was fascinating to see different teams' approaches to investigating the paranormal. As you know, I'm very much a back to basics kind of guy, using the body and the bare basics really. But some of the equipment was fascinating just to see really. Guy's Cliff, if you don't know, became famous in the ghost hunting world when Most Haunted went there, and they had the table that was levitating apparently and was moving around. And interestingly, I found out while we were there from a guy who was present while Most Haunted were there. It has been debunked, basically. Apparently, having sat at the table myself, it's easy to see how. But if you can fish that video out, maybe on an online streaming service, you might be able to see that it is indeed fake. But at the time, there was a huge uproar about it. That they caught some great footage there. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be true. But we had a great night there nonetheless. Some great activity. The K2s were very, very active, particularly out in the stable area, which interestingly had no electric near us. So we were outside of the main building, which is obviously plugged up. It's all electric. But we were outside in like a side building that doesn't have a roof really or anything. It was it's quite castle-y, it's that kind of brickwork. And there was no electric out there. We had to have torches to see where we were going, and open to the elements. But the K2 meters were really kicking off out there. We had a ball that only lights up when it's moved. That went off quite a few times. We had knocking from inside, I think it was a cellar or a dungeon or some kind, and we closed the door and we knocked on the door and we had knocking back. But interestingly, it wasn't on the door. It sounded like it was coming from within the room. So one guy went and stood in the room as we knocked, and the guy in the room and us outside of the room all heard it clearly. But the guy who was stood inside the room said it still sounded like it was coming from, quite far away, even though he was in the room. So it's always difficult to try and figure out where that noise comes from. But it was very, very interesting that we could all hear it, and it was responsive to our knocking. It knocked back, when we knocked, it would knock back. It didn't just knock on its own. It seemed to just be answering our own knocks, which was interesting. It was a really, really good night. Everyone had a lot of respect for each other and what we were there to do. And the most important thing, of course, is one of the teams brought some absolutely delicious homemade cupcakes. And I have been informed that they will be at one of these Festival of the Unexplained events. I think the one in Stourbridge where I'll be. So fingers crossed they bring some of those cupcakes, because they were delicious. So you'll know if you've been on an investigation that come midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, when your energy levels begin to sap really, to have a really nice chocolate cupcake or something just boosts your levels a little bit, without overloading on sugar, of course. Just boosts your levels and enables you to go on for a couple of more hours really. I think Ryan had his fair share. He may have eaten about 3 at the time. But they were very, very nice indeed. So thanks for bringing those. We'll get on with the show. So Karen's going to be on to talk about her ghost hunting career and the festival, of course, and her likes and dislikes of investigating and locations that she enjoys. So without further ado, we'll get on with the show. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome Karen to the show. Karen, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. We were just talking there in the before we started recording, actually, about how this is the first show back for a while, and I couldn't think of a better show really, because I know this is going to be fascinating with all of your experience in ghost hunting, and my listeners have asked for a show about, kind of on the ground grassroots ghost hunting in England. They're getting tired of all this American kind of market share that's going around at the minute. So it'd be nice to get some home roots going for us. So to kick us off, you are a investigator. You are you work for is it Haunted magazine?
Yep, that's
Haunted
right.
magazine, yeah. And you are also basically the pioneer for the great Festival of the Unexplained.
Oh, the pioneer.
The
Not been
pioneer, you
called
like
that
that, yeah.
before.
Do you want to tell us more about this festival? Because I was lucky enough to guest on it, and it was the first one that we had to do from behind closed doors, really, because we were forced to do so because obviously we couldn't go out because of the current situation. Did that throw up some fresh challenges? Because I imagine it's challenging enough to organise a festival like that, but to have to completely change the platform, I imagine that was quite challenging.
Yeah, it was really, to be honest. Obviously, usually it's just a case of, I've been doing this for over 2 years, 2.5 years now. So organising them is not easy for me, but I have a system.
Yeah.
So I know how everything works. I know how I want everything. But to actually do it virtually was a challenge, especially the fact of obviously booking your host like yourself, to do presentations and interviews and so on, to try and organise everybody, timings for everyone, trying to keep on time for everything.
Yeah.
And then also, whilst you've got all these fantastic people doing presentations and interviews, on the flip side, you have got, on the first one, we had all the exhibitors as well still, like we normally would have at the physical events. So having those on board and then trying to exhibit their wares basically as well, it was really challenging, and I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the one thing that scared me the most, and I'm sure it probably scared you more, was a failure in technology. Because when you're doing a lecture in front of an audience, you set up the screen, you set up the monitor, you set up the overhead projector and the microphone, and that's really it. So that there's not that much that can go wrong apart from a speaker, maybe not turning up or something like that. But when you've got people all over the world essentially with their own laptops that all have their own problems and their own internet connections and stuff like that, I imagine that scared the hell out of you, really.
Yeah, that was the biggest challenge. That was the most scariest thing, is the fact that somebody got their timing wrong or something. Obviously there's a massive time difference with some of the people we interviewed. There was like not only just a 4 hour, but 5, 6. One of the people we interviewed, there was like an 8-hour time difference. Wow. So that was challenging as well. Like you mentioned, that's something else I didn't mention, is the challenging fact of all the different timescales.
Yeah.
Because obviously, with them being a different country, it's not like you could just give them a quick call and say, don't forget, you're on at this time or whatever. And it was a case of relying on the fact that you've got your timings right with those people, and they were going to be sat there ready in their own country to come on air when you wanted them to. It's not like with a podcast, it's a little bit different. You could probably do something to fill time or something, but trying to do all these lives, you've got no time fillers.
No, and it got worse because you kind of took this idea of having this all day festival, and then for the next one that you did, it was a marathon. It was it 36 hours or was it
41 in the end?
41 hours non-stop. So so that's how you really for the were in different time zones.
Yeah, that's what we did. Like I said, the first one, the one that you were part of, and you kicked us off that day as well, which we really appreciated. That must have been tough for you to be the first one on to do the first presentation.
Absolutely,
no pressure, Kieran. Do you want to be part of it? Yeah. By the way, you're the first person going to be on the show. But yeah, that was only supposed to have been like 10 till 4, 10 till 6 at a stretch, and then landed up being 10 till 8 both days. So that got extended. But then for the next one, initially we said, let's do 24 hours. And then it was John, actually. It was John Tolliday. I always bring him up and blame him because it was his idea. He said, why don't we know we can do it. Why don't we smash it out the park and do a 36-hour event? And the rest of us were like, yeah, why not? great idea. And then we thought about the logistics, about the practice. Hold on a minute. Someone's going to have to be up all night to do these interviews. Or different people are going to have to be up during the night to do these interviews. So, yeah, that was a great idea at the time. But it was fantastic. I, really, really enjoyed doing it. Got to speak to so many different people about so many different things. And I don't regret it at all. Like I said, it went from 24 hours to 36 hours, and then it landed up being 41 in the end. Yeah. It was we had such a fantastic response of people from the first one. And as you know, on the Sunday, people are asking when the next one was going to be. And we hadn't even finished the first day. They're like, oh, what's on tomorrow? So, hold on, we've still got more today. And then on the Sunday, it was, when's your next one going to be? And we were like, well, we only planned to do the August event. We never actually planned to do the next one in October, because we were hoping we wouldn't have to. We were hoping there wouldn't be a need to do another one. But, like I said, it was fantastic. I think everybody enjoyed it, and I certainly enjoyed it. Even the sleep deprivation, my husband kept that coffee coming all night. And I absolutely loved it. And what a lot of people that didn't stay up through the night with us know is Eddie actually participated in one of the interviews. And as people like yourself will know, he does not do interviews. He does not partake in interviews. He doesn't get interviewed, and he doesn't do the interviews, because that's not his thing, doing lives and being on video and so on. But he actually did his first interview during that 41-hour parathon that we did that weekend. So that was great for me to actually have him sat with me doing the interview with me.
Did he enjoy it? Is it something he wants to do again?
Actually, in honesty, he's actually since then did a podcast interview. Only the one, but he has done a podcast interview since as well.
That's good. It's good. I mean, the thing is, again, people like Eddie, again, loads of experience, loads of knowledge, and I guess he's been in situations that a lot of people can relate to in terms of ghost hunting, and it'd be a shame for him not to be able to put those across in interviews and in podcasts. So I'm quite happy actually that he's kind of come out of his comfort zone and he's willing to do that now.
Well, he's done one. That's as far as we've got. One's better than none. So there's time yet. So the festival. So again, I did kind of go over this in the introduction. So there's no need to recap too much about what it is. But for anyone that is interested in ever appearing on one, and hopefully we can go back to the lives. I know you've started to promote the live festivals next year in places like Gloucester and I think Stourbridge for my local one. And if that's the case, people can contact you, I guess, and if they would like to exhibit a stall there, or if they would like to do a talk. Yeah, definitely. We've got, like you said, you're going to be at our March one. Fingers crossed, you're going to be at the March one at Stourbridge in March. And then we've got, in June, we're at Tewkesbury. In July, we're at Ulster. In August, we're at Gloucester, like you said. And then in September is the big one, is the whole weekend event. But at all of them, yes, you can exhibit. We're always looking for new speakers. So you just contact me either via the Festival of the Unexplained Facebook page, and we've also got our website, and we have actually got, for store holders, a contact page on the website, which is just www.festivaloftheunexplained.com.
Okay, that's great. So for any listeners that want to get in on this and exhibit a stall, if you've got things to sell, anything really, I guess, from crystals to books to magazines, or if you'd like to actually do a talk, just get in touch with Karen and she'll get the ball rolling for you. In terms of paranormal investigating, then Karen, I mean, that's obviously you are a medium, and we'll touch on that a little bit later in the show. But in terms of actually, on the ground ghost hunting, where would you say is the best place you've ever investigated in England?
Wow, that's a difficult one.
It is. I mean, I've been asked this myself, and when you've done so many places,
I've got so many that I like for different reasons, though. So
okay.
that's why it's so difficult for me, because we've been to that many different places. I've had experience in Gloucester Prison. We've got some fantastic stuff through Spirit Portals and so on at the Tudor World in Stratford upon Avon, Drakelow Tunnels. I've been there. I think we worked out 10 times so far. Okay. Because I just keep, every time we go, we get some different type of evidence. Yeah. And we just can't stop going, basically. Ed has actually been 11 times. He's been once without me. But I think that's probably the place we've done the most out of any.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Drakelow is one of my favourite places, because you always seem to find a new area every time you go, an area that you didn't quite have time to do before. For those that don't know where Drakelow is, it's an underground Cold War bunker, essentially, with 5 miles worth of tunnels. I think you're 400 feet underground at the deepest point. Yeah. Pitch black. Some of the tunnels are big enough to drive lorries down. A fantastic place.
And it's the Rover factory at one point, obviously, as well.
It was. They used to store the plane parts there, I believe, for the war. I mean, I've had some fantastic evidence down there. Have you ever managed to capture anything down there?
We've got a great setup for video recording, but we haven't, apart from light anomalies and so on, and like it is down there, you can decipher between dust and light anomaly. Yeah. There, because as you know, it is literally pitch black. So you explain what that light anomaly is, if you know.
Yeah, I mean, there's no electric down there in the most part as well. So things that things that interfere with K2 meters down there or things like that.
There's nothing.
No.
And as soon as you walk in, even before, as soon as you walk through that front door, you have no phone signal. You have no internet. There's literally nothing. There is no connection to the outside world once you go through that door, because everything is gone. Yeah. Yeah. Just to let people know, it literally there's nothing. So any activity you get, like you said, on a K2 or anything like that, normally you'll say, oh, well, that could be a phone or could be whatever interfering with that. Yeah. But down there, there's nothing to interfere with anything. No, like you said, there's no electricity.
No, I mean, light anomaly seems to be the most occurred piece of evidence down there. Really. I mean, we have caught some good EVPs down there. But yeah, light anomalies. I mean, we had a fantastic video that showed like a red orb dancing around us, like a big red dot, which again was clearly not dust, because you don't see much red dust. I mean, what was
EVPs are amazing down there. That's something else. Like you said, we've had EVP down there, and it wasn't any of us, and it's been clear. Yeah. I mean, we've had clear messages. We've had greetings and hellos and things like that. You had clear footsteps as well, because of course it's solid stone. These tunnels, and you can hear the footsteps as clear as day when you're all stood still. Yeah, definitely. It's got to be okay. It's got to be one of my favourite places to do. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have been there 10 times already.
Yeah, I mean, I think
going back. I'm already booked to go back next year.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I must have done it probably about 10 times myself. There's a guy who was in our team. He essentially had keys to Drakelow because he was on the renovating team. So he kind of had free access to it essentially. So we did it quite a lot, and unfortunately the price went up a lot, which was spoken about before, which does tend to ruin it. Yeah,
that's the thing. It is unfortunate. A lot of places the price goes up, and especially after this lockdown, I should imagine come next year, a lot of places will put their prices up because they've obviously got to try and claw money back from this year, which doesn't help us. those people that want to go out and book it and just go as a small group, you just can't. It's not feasible. You just don't have the finance to do it.
No, and that's where the big corporations, the big franchised ghost hunting teams have a monopoly on the market, essentially.
Yeah, they do. And like I said, with Rayclough, I was really, really fortunate to be one of the teams that were there when Just Paranormal did their live feed from inside the tunnels. The first time it's ever been done.
Yes, yeah. That's quite groundbreaking, actually. That's quite good. I didn't know you were there at the time.
I was there. It was a touch and go, obviously, with my health situation recently. Yes. It was a touch and go situation. Would I or would I not be going? And I was like, this is like groundbreaking. This is something everyone's wanted to do, and no one's been able to do it, or even tried to do it. So when I'm friends with Lee and Mark anyway, so when I knew that Lee and Mark were doing this amazing thing there of doing a live from that, I was like, health aside, I'm going.
Yeah.
I am not missing
to
this.
Yeah.
I am not. I shouldn't have been there, admittedly, but I was. There's just no way I was missing it.
No, I mean it's a fantastic place for the listeners. If you ever manage to go to Draclow Tunnels in Wolverley near Kidderminster in the West Midlands, do, because it is, as you've heard, it's a fascinating, fantastic place to go. Now, Karen, the equipment that you use, I've been on. We went on an investigation together about. Well, it seems like forever ago now. With what's going on, yeah. But we were lucky enough to get one in really before we were forced into another lockdown, and I really enjoyed that. I mean, I give reviews on this podcast of ghost hunts that I go on. I do try to go with other teams to support them, and I always give an honest review for the listeners. And your review was one of the best. You'll be pleased to know. It was really good. It was organised well. The times were really good, which can be a problem on ghost hunts. Sometimes you're being forced out of a room by the next people coming in because they're either rushing or there's no real set times, and sometimes it can be done in a way that you get noise pollution from a group that are too close to you while you're trying to do one location. But none of that really happened with you guys. It was a really, really great night, and I noticed while I was there that there was a huge array of equipment. Now, I'm quite basic when it comes to ghost hunting. I'm trying to go back to basics, but some of your equipment had me kind of dumbfounded with. I mean, there was the big. I think Eddie was walking around with it. It looked like I think it was a ghost box or something, and it looked like an old jukebox. Yeah,
it was it's a don't quote me now, 1930s radio. That he's converted himself during lockdown for something to do. To be perfectly honest, he came across it and he was like, "Look at this," and he showed me it and he said, "Wow, look at this," and I was like, and it's got all the individual lights and everything on it, and I think it's amazing. It's something different that I've never seen before. I've never seen a radio like it before.
No, it's. I mean, I saw it on the table, and I had to go over and talk to him about it. I mean, if you can, do send me a picture, and I'll put it on our page for our listeners to look at. A fantastic piece of equipment. And the other thing that really stood out to me was the spirit board that you've got in one of the rooms. Now, this was really different for me because I always try and find ways to debunk stuff, really, because that's, I believe, what we should be doing. And this spirit board really does that. So you had pieces of copper wire essentially on the outside of the board, and the wire fed to a dial in the middle of the board. And the point was that your energy conducted through the copper turned the dial to point at the correct letter or number, which eradicates the possible outside influence of someone moving the glass, whether it be on purpose or not, but moving the glass themselves. And that was a fantastic thing. Is that something you thought of? Is it something you've seen?
It was something, yet again, it was something that Eddie came across. Never seen one before. And showed a bit to me and said, well, yeah, that's something. We both agreed that is something very unusual. And we like our unusual stuff. As you can tell, 1930s radio. But yeah, we was like, it's very unusual. And like you said, it was a piece of kit that you cannot, with boards, like you said, a lot of people are wary of them. Whereas with that, like you said, you cannot falsify results with it. You either get a result or you don't.
Yeah.
It's that simple, because like you said, there is no outside influence.
No, I mean, and I did try to. I blew on the arm that swings round, and I tried to nudge it just to see if it was flimsy enough, I guess, for a breeze or a draft to blow it, which could lead you to thinking it was false paranormal activity. But it was quite a rigid kind of action, so it's not like someone could breathe onto it to.
Yeah.
Sorry, these are the things I do when I want to go.
I'm laughing. Do you know why? When we first got it, guess what we did? Exactly what you've just said. We trialed it. Well, because at the end of the day, we don't get a piece of equipment, take it on an event and trial it there.
No.
We will get a piece of equipment and we will try and debunk it ourselves and see, you've got to try it out. So we have done that, like we've blown on it and nudged it and did all the things that you said you did for exactly the same reason. So when we do go on an event, whether it's another team using it or whether it's the public using it, if they say, oh, this happened, then at least we can turn around and say to them, like, really sorry. I know you probably thought it was fantastic, but this could be the reasoning why it was doing this or why it was doing that,
Yeah,
because you've got to, if you're going to do it, you've got to do honest investigating, or there's no point in doing it at all.
That's absolutely right. And the thing is, it doesn't matter how much, unfortunately, it doesn't matter how much you debunk your own equipment and how much you try and eradicate that. There will always be someone that will tell you it's not real. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. That's their belief system and that's fine. But you have to try and run it through as much testing as possible, really, to try and minimise the amount of people that have that reaction, I guess.
Yeah, well, you need to. Like I said, we've got all sorts. I don't know if you saw, we've got a music box as well that we used that night you were there. Yeah, great stuff. I mean, the next question really is what is your favourite piece of equipment? But I guess what I like about you guys, and I found this out on that last investigation, was you do step outside the box. A lot of people, they use the K2, they use a standard spirit board because that's what they see people on TV using, and so they think, oh, that's what we should be using. But it seems that you guys like to step outside the box and either take a current piece of equipment and modify it so it's a little bit different or a little bit, more difficult to fake, or you're making your own kind of stuff up. So what is your favourite piece of equipment? Out of all the things, like I said, we recently, like I said, we've got that music box which has got the laser beam in it. It's got the beam and everything, so you've got to break the beam for it to do anything. I like that, but perfectly honest, I have to admit, voice recorder.
Okay, yeah.
It's got to be a voice recorder, because for me, being a medium, if I'm getting information or whatever, to get that clarified for the person that stood there listening to me via an EVP is just amazing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a little bit of like an instrument for me as well, not just put it on and see if you capture anything and ask questions and whatever. We also use it in that kind of way as well. If we are asking questions, people are giving information, because obviously we work with more than one medium. Obviously, we've got more than one medium on the team, so it's good to use it in that way too, and find and see if it corroborates basically what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, let's talk a little bit about the mediumship, because it fascinates me that you have multiple on one team, because I've been with some of these bigger groups that we talk of, and they always tend to have one and one alone, and that person tends to rule the roost. They kind of direct everybody to what they should be feeling, what they should be seeing. But to have more than one, to me, is an interesting yet potentially conflicting tactic, because do you ever find that it causes a bit of, not friction, because you're all fantastic friends, but do you ever have conflicting kind of messages? Or
admittedly, no, because when we all, whether we're working together or not working together at an event, we find it's just really weird the way we all are. We didn't know, we all just met on events and so on. It wasn't a case of that we were friends before, and we don't talk about locations before we go. We don't find out information before we go. We never do that. None of us ever do. So for us to get information and then corroborate what each other has said is fantastic. And we all work differently. That's the other thing. We don't all work in the same way. So that also helps as well.
Yeah.
So whoever you work with, you get a different experience then. Yeah. Because we are all individuals, obviously, but we all work differently when we are doing our mediumship.
Okay. I mean, it's just, I did think about that, kind of, because obviously I follow you guys and we're in touch quite regularly. And I have often wondered how it works, because a lot of people, they will only have one. And I suspect that those mediums that are the only one are actually quite happy with that, because, I mean, I am a big believer in mediumship, obviously, but that doesn't mean that there aren't frauds out there or people that will, extort it in order to make a bit of money. And if these kind of people are challenged by potentially another medium or by someone that doesn't quite believe it, they can get quite prickly about it. And I imagine that's why they do tend to have just one, because their word goes, shall we say.
Yeah, well, we're a bit different like that. Like I said, not only the fact that we all work differently, it also, the fact is, if we're getting something, we're getting something. If we're not getting something, we're not getting something. Yeah. And we'll be honest with it. I've been on events sometimes. We've all been on events sometimes where we're getting no activity or we're getting nothing. You know, and it's not just the fact you're not getting anything with the equipment. Sometimes the medium doesn't get anything either. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just because people have expectations. If they go on an event and you've got a medium, they expect that medium to pick up on everything and give them all the information. It doesn't work like that. It's whatever information or interaction they want to give you. It's no different. The only way I explain it is it's no different a spirit working with a medium than it is a spirit working with a piece of kit. If they want to use it, they will. If they don't, they won't. It's that simple.
Yeah, and I'm so glad you've said that, because I mean that's kind of my motto as well. Really, we've been on events where the spirit board hasn't moved. We've been on events where, absolute, 4 hours later, nothing has happened whatsoever. And I always say to people, well, at least we're not faking it, because there are other groups where stuff's happening all the time, and it's constant, and you think, come on, that can't be real. And for people like us who are, quite, not veterans, but, we're quite experienced in this kind of thing, you do know that you will go not an investigation, but investigations at a time without really getting anything. Yeah. And that's something you're right. You're absolutely right. You have to explain that to your guests, if you have paying guests, or to people that are with you, because sometimes they come with expectations that you just can't meet.
Which I think is always important at the beginning of the night with the public. When we do our smaller venues, we tend to have pretty much the same people that tend to come back with us because of activity and what we've got previous time. Yeah. Like Tudor World, I think it's Stratford. I think every time we've been there, at least one of the groups that have been with us, we only take 2 groups anyway. Yeah. We always do. We just take 2 small groups. But one of those 2 groups are always the same people. Yeah. And have been there every time. But I think that makes a difference as well with energy and everything. If you gel or whether you don't, that makes a difference too. Because whatever energy you're putting out is what you get back.
Yeah, again, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you've interviewed me previously, and we spoke about my theory on frequencies and things like that, and I think that plays a massive part there. If you go with negativity, if you go with nothing's going to happen, I'm not going to see anything, then you won't, because what you're putting that negativity out, so you're going to get that back. That doesn't necessarily mean if you go believing you're going to see something, if you do see something, it's real. It could be you making it real because you're so desperate to see something. Yeah. I think you're right. I think that energy, and certain people bond with certain places. Do you find that that certain places for you are more active on a personal level because that's just a place that you tend to I guess, reverberate well with?
Yeah, for me, that would be, like I said, Tudor World and Drakelow. That I did, like with Tudor World, last time we went there, through the portal, we actually had only 3 team members were actually in attendance because obviously it's a small location.
Yeah.
We only took 8 people. That was it. Because it was when you were only allowed groups of 6.
Yes, yeah.
So rather than have a group of 6, we took 2 groups of 4, and that's all we had, and 3 team members.
Yeah.
And through the portal we had, where's Eddie, which obviously is my husband.
Yeah.
Also said, we want Dennis, another team member. It literally went through all the team members that have been there. It said every single one of their names.
Wow. And that's if they weren't there at that
Yeah,
point.
they weren't there last time. We literally had 3 of us that were there, and everyone else was mentioned. Everyone else's name was given. If you interview John Holiday, he I don't know what it is there with him. When he's there, we get activity when he's not there, but when he is there, it's almost when our energies are all together.
Yeah,
it's crazy because on these nights that we do, even the public nights, no one, because you're there for such a long time, because you have it for so many hours.
Yeah.
If the guests have had enough, and they go, last time the guests actually stayed till 4 a.m. and they stuck it out longer than ones we hooked last time.
Yeah.
But sometimes they don't always stick it out that long. And with Tudor World, if you book it on a Friday, you've got it till 5 a.m. in the morning, which is really late for some people.
Yeah.
And they won't stay that long. So sometimes we will be still there after. And we've been there and we've done team nights there as well, you see. So it's not just on public nights. So I think that makes a difference because we've all been there together on private nights just as a team as well as these public nights. So I think when you continuously go somewhere with the same people,
yeah,
it's almost like you get to know them and they get to know you.
Yeah, I mean, essentially you're imprinting your energy, you're imprinting your vibrational frequency, I would say, onto that area. So you will get a reaction back, I believe.
It's the same with Drakelow. We get, on multiple occasions, we've had the same spirits come through, but in different ways.
Yeah.
So, and that's because you've always got an element of at least 1 or 2 of the same people there, in the group each time.
Yeah, I mean, just out of interest, what were the spirits that you have interacted with in Drakelow?
We've had, there's been, with Jolene, there's been a gentleman, I think it's, there was work there at some point. He's been to her more than once when we've been there in different ways. We also have interacted with a lady which has come across as that she was a witch and she was a part of a circle.
Okay.
She's actually came through at Witchbury Woods as well, because as you know, obviously they're not a million miles apart.
No.
But she's been through not only at Drakelow itself multiple times in different ways. Jolene's actually seen her in my house.
Wow,
which was quite interesting. Yeah, I know. That was a bit of a strange one. She explained what she was explaining this woman this information she was given, and she explained what this woman looked like, and I just started laughing, and she didn't. She was like, "Why are you laughing? This is not funny." I'm like, "Yeah, but it is. I'll tell you why after." And afterwards, I explained to her, "You know who you've just described, don't you?" She said, "No." So I said, "That's who we I said, "That's the same person that I brought through in trance at Drakelow."
So is this spirit potentially attached to you then? So that they're not necessarily at Drakelow?
Visitation.
Yeah.
I've only been the once that I know of in this house. She's just popped in.
Yeah.
Literally once, and that was it. On the one when Joe was staying with us for a few days, she come to visit, and obviously I haven't been obviously going out, not really, since March. So it was very odd that she would explain what this woman looked like, and it's how I explained her when we were at Draco previously, but Joe wasn't there.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So that was the interesting thing, that Joe explained her word for word, but on the occasion that this lady was described, Jolene wasn't even on the event. She didn't even come that night.
No, I mean that it's when stuff like that happens. It's quite interesting, because obviously if she was there, she could have subconsciously, remembered, I guess, that recollection of the lady.
This is something I was talking about the other night. I did an interview, and after the interview, we were chatting afterwards, and one of the people on that team is quite sceptical. So I was explaining that I've always had this thing of, okay, regardless of how many, I trust in spirit and I trust in what I do.
Yeah.
But there's always that odd occasion, because you go somewhere so often that you do think, okay, was that information in my subconscious and I remembered it from before and that's where it's come from, or am I being given this information now?
Yeah.
It does make you think. And admittedly, I'm not saying everything mediums say is not true. Of course, I'm not saying that. But I have like second guessed myself on occasions, because I've been I've been there so many times. I think it's only human to second guess yourself.
No, not only is it human, but I think in your field of work, particularly with the mediumship, I think it's essential that you question yourself, because I think some people don't, and that's what leads to them potentially becoming not purposefully, but becoming fraudulent and not being as accurate as they maybe intend to be. So I think questioning yourself is an absolute must, really.
I think it is important, because, like you said, there's a lot of places that we've been to on so many different occasions, and we've had so much information on different occasions. You must store some of that somewhere in your subconscious.
Absolutely. I mean, I did a quite famous now, people I've spoke about, but I did a little test on a friend of mine at the Ancient Ram Inn, and we did some automatic handwriting, and throughout the whole day I kept saying the same name to him, just dropping it in conversation, really. And then when it came to doing the session on the night, he wrote that name. And when I asked him why he wrote that name, he didn't know. He had no reason as to why he would write that name. And when I told him that I must have mentioned it about 50 times throughout that day, he realised that it was on his subconscious.
It's like with Gary Fields, who we work with, which is a very good friend of ours, and we work with him all the time. He will actually, whatever he's been getting throughout the week prior to the investigation, on occasions he will sit it down and he will write down everything that he's got.
Yeah.
He will put it in an envelope and give it to somebody at the beginning of the night.
Yeah.
And then when we all come together at the end of the night and go through what we've got and so on, or whatever experience we've had, or in so on and so on, then that's when that envelope will be opened. And it's very, very interesting that these other groups and these other teams have come back with information or had interaction or this, that, and the other. And it's basically it's in the information that he's written down and put in this envelope. And he won't tell anyone anything that's in there prior to going. Yeah. He keeps it all to himself, doesn't say a word. And it is literally a case of seeing what everybody else gets and if they get any of the things that are in this envelope. And it's so interesting to see at the end of the night that when you open it and you go through it, and they're like, you let everyone give you their information. Yeah. And it's almost like you go through it and check it off in a way.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. from that point of view, to see someone do that, they're getting it before they even get to the location, which happens a lot as well.
Yeah, I mean, and what I like there about, I like what he's doing there, because I've been on investigations with mediums where they tend to shout out what's happening there and then, which then will influence other people around them. And then, and loads of times as we've been leaving one of the rooms, a lot of people have said to the people coming into that room, "Oh, we've just had X, Y, and Z." And of course, what they're doing there is they're planting that in their head. So there's a chance that they're going to now go and experience that just because they've been told that the last group did. So it's almost like they're looking out for it. So what I like about that is he writes it down. He doesn't really talk about it to anybody. He waits for other people to bring it up and then correlates it against his own information. I think that's a really good way of working.
I just find it really interesting to see what comes out, basically, and what information is given.
Yeah.
But that's the same, like, even when you're working mediumship-wise on an investigation as well, is it's good just to see, let the night flow, let the energy flow, and just see what comes through via, I don't know, apps, portals, and so on, and equipment wise and everything, rather than just relying on your medium and them telling you everything. Because for me, I don't really work like that. If I get stuff, I don't always say something, because if you're getting activity on a piece of equipment and you're getting interaction or something, or automatic writing or whatever, then I'd rather go with that. We'd rather go with that and leave people to get an experience, because that's the whole point. If you're going to take public on an investigation, if you're just going to stand there all night and tell them everything, what are they gaining from it? Nothing.
Yeah, again, and that's kind of what I've alluded to. That you let them have their own experiences.
That's the whole point. Sure.
Exactly. What it is, isn't it? Because even if they're not paying guests, it's just the fact that it's a personal experience. And what I'd like to say is just because someone might have an experience that you as a medium can't correlate with, that doesn't necessarily mean that what they've experienced isn't true.
Exactly.
And we get a lot of the times people almost get knocked down for what they've experienced. Oh, well, no, you're saying you've just experienced a monk and there's no evidence of there ever being a monastery here or a monk here, so you're wrong. And that's wrong.
And who's anyone to say that someone else is wrong?
Exactly.
Were you there?
Personal. Exactly.
Were you there back there centuries ago? Can you definitely guarantee that, I don't know, a monk was on his way somewhere else and stopped off there for whatever reason, and he liked the place, so he revisited after he left this world? You don't know.
Exactly. And not only that, I mean, the way it works, potentially the monk didn't even have to have stopped there in his life. He could just be attracted to that particular person at the time who was there investigating, or he might have come with somebody else and shown himself to that person. There's so many different permutations as to why they have experienced that personal experience that it's nobody's right really to knock them down for it.
No, of course it's not. That's wrong. At the end of the day, we all have our own personal experiences. But I hoped that most people have a personal experience, whatever it may, no matter how small it may be.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. It's still yours. It's something that's happened to you.
That's it. That's it, really. And we've got about 5 minutes or so left now, and I'd really like to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess. So probably less of the ugly. But what would you say is the best thing about what it is that you do? What is it you enjoy the most about going out there and investigating?
I think it's got to be the interaction with other people.
Okay.
It's the different energies, the different people that you meet from different backgrounds that all come together to do something that they enjoy and something they're passionate about. Yeah. I couldn't have worded that better myself. And the bad, I mean, because as much as we enjoy what we do, there are bad things. There are bad things that we might not enjoy as much, or things that occur that we might not like the idea of. Is there anything that you don't really enjoy about it? Cold. Yeah, cold. Yeah, I hate being. I'm one of these people. I'm constantly cold all the time. Right. Okay. Even in the house, let alone actually going out anywhere. And as you can imagine, why I'm drawn and I go to Drake there so many times, I have no idea. When it's probably the coldest place you can ever go to. Absolutely. But no, being serious, it's kind of, I suppose, people that are disrespectful to each other and the location and the spirits that are there, you know, that can get a little bit irate because they're not getting something, or just there just to be negative. And they constantly, don't get me wrong, it's good to debunk things, but when you have someone that's there that's constantly all night, well, you could have done that. Oh, well, I don't believe that's true. And they you know, and they're there because they've been dragged to go, and you can tell they have, because they're not interested, they can't be bothered, and all they want to do is debunk everything all night. And so, why'd you bother paying your money? Why'd you bother coming?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We've had a lot of those. We had a guy who came to Drakelow who walked out halfway through because he was expecting a walk around historical tour.
Oh. And
it was advertised as a paranormal investigation. And he complained throughout the night that he couldn't see anything. Where were the lights? Why was no one telling him about the history of the place? And, you know, we tried to explain what it was. You know, he's obviously booked the wrong ticket.
Yeah.
And he just left. So it was a very weird situation. But yeah, he was very negative throughout the night, and we were glad. And the mood did seem to lift when he left. So,
we've had it before. We I won't say where and who or anything else, but we were at a location once, and it just proves it. We were having really good activity. Everyone was enjoying their evening. Don't get me wrong, there wasn't stuff happening every 5 minutes, because in reality, in real life, off TV, it doesn't, and on TV, it doesn't. What people don't realise is that one episode could be filmed over 3 days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or a week sometimes. So we had an occasion where we had one night, we had some people turn up late, and the whole atmosphere completely changed.
Oh, interesting.
And the evidence went from the energy went from being quite high, and positive and active and busy wherever you went within this building. It completely changed.
Oh, that is interesting.
You could feel it. It just totally changed. And even it's a public night, and even the public said, you know, it just suddenly, as soon as they walked in, the energy was kind of gone.
And that's a shame, really, for the rest of the people that had paid their good money to go on the investigation, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it happens, doesn't it? You know, you have these nights where we used to have people coming drunk, you know, walking in with cans of Fosters and things like that, and as much as you tell them they can't, people still do. You know.
Yeah, so that's the important thing. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you advertise it, you always get that one that thinks, oh, well, they won't even notice it. It'll be all right. You're not going to notice. You can smell the alcohol with the mints you're trying to chew, and you're just making it stronger.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Just before we round off, then, is it obviously you give readings for your mediumship? The festival is kicking on. Hopefully we can get back out there next year. Is there any way that listeners can reach you? Do you have any contact information? And I'll be sure to obviously put it with the podcast itself, but if you'd just like to tell the listeners where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I've got a Facebook page, Karen Fray Medium page. As for the festival, like I said, if anyone would like to be a speaker, it would only be the 1 day events that we'll be looking for people for next year. Exhibitor wise is all of the events, including the weekend event. But the actual weekend event, we've had a lot of people contacting us about the weekend event, wanting to be a speaker at that.
Yeah.
And not the others. But there is availability at the 1 day event, but the weekend event, we have all our speakers. We've already announced 6 of them. Yeah. Which, if anybody's missed we've announced Daniel Class, who owns the Hinsdale House and is part of the Ghost Finders team.
Yeah.
And we've already announced Patty Negri, psychic medium from Hollywood. Miranda Young, which is Ghost Biker Explorations, also from America. And we've also announced Chris and Brannon Smith and Mike from the Raft Chasers. from the Haunted Town series. So as you can see, we've got all our speakers for that one. But if anyone is interested in being an exhibitor at that, then please do contact us via our website. But yeah, we have speaker spots at the one-day events. If anyone would like to contact me, then they're more than welcome to.
Okay, that's great. Well, all that remains for me to say is thank you for coming on the show, Karen. It's been fantastic. It was nice to return the favour and get you onto my show. Hope you've enjoyed it. It's been a really good interview. So yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I do appreciate it.
That's no problem at all. And we'll speak soon. Take care.
You too.
Okay, so that was the interview there with Karen Fray. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. First episode back for a long time. Tried to make it a good one for you guys. I have had some feedback from some of your listeners who were craving a bit more of a basics episode, really, talking to investigators, the guys that are out there doing it in terms of ghost hunting. So hopefully you enjoyed that. You've asked and you have received. So I do my best to please the audience. But yeah, really interesting interview. She's a lovely lady, is Karen. As she alluded to, she's battling some health issues, but she never lets it get her down. She's a huge, kind of bumbling, positive energy kind of person. Great to be around. Great to interview. She does some really good things for the field itself, really, and that's what we need. We need these kind of people who are, pushing the envelope really with the paranormal world and kind of taking it out of this stale situation that we've got in, as I've alluded to before, and pushing it to new levels. And I think what she does with the festival is absolutely fantastic. So if you are around the England area and you know any of those areas that she's mentioned, so Stourbridge in the West Midlands, there's Gloucester, Bosworth, I think she mentioned for the big weekend event, Tewkesbury, of course, great historical place to be in general. So if you could maybe get to any of those events, just go to festivaloftheunexplained.com. You can buy your tickets for these events, and the dates are always being announced if you follow it on Facebook. And if you head to YouTube and search for Festival of the Unexplained, you'll be able to see many videos and many streams and presentations from those online events that they were forced to do. And hopefully you enjoy them as much as I did, because I think it's a great thing that they're doing there. So yeah, the tickets are on sale. So if you can, please do come along to one of them. And if I happen to be there, head over and say hello. It'd be really good to meet you. And yeah, hopefully, like I say, we're back on track now. I've got another interview already in the bag. Got plenty of guests lined up, so we should have a good run of shows now. So I'm back, and hopefully we can get back to where we were. Good standard of podcasting, and I hope you guys are all keeping well. I hope you're all, it's a horrible situation that we're in. Whether you are playing along with what's going on or not. Either way, it's a horrible situation, what's going on. And if you do have any thoughts on that, actually, as a bit of a side note, don't forget I do host another show called The Collective Conspiracy Show, and that's on brand new Tube. Because of the content, it can't really be uploaded to YouTube. So if you head over to brandnewtube.com and search for The Collective Conspiracy Show, or if you head over to Facebook and look for The Collective Conspiracy Show group and join, you'll see all of the live shows that I do there. So it's a different format. It's a live show. There's a video, so you'll see myself and my guests. And we tackle all sorts of conspiracy subjects, 9/11, the moon landings. I think we've done plenty of shows on COVID, because obviously that's the hot topic at the moment. And I think we're going to do a bit more on ancient aliens, a bit more on UFOs and things like that. So if that is your interest, then please head over, have a look, join the group, follow the channel. If not, that's absolutely fine. Stick with me here at the Paranormal Paradigm podcast, and there's sure to be some great shows coming up in the future for you to listen to. So as always, thank you for joining me. Thank you for following, for sharing, and just for enjoying the show in general. It's a pleasure to do just for you guys. So take care, and I'll speak to you soon.